There's a kind of silence that doesn't come from the absence of sound, but from the absence of meaning. A silence that echoes inside the soul long after the noise of the world fades away. And perhaps no one understood this silence better than Fyodor Dostoevsky, the man who stared into the abyss of human guilt and dared to speak about what he found there. Dostoevsky's world was one where faith trembled, morality cracked, and every man stood alone before the ghost of his conscience. He didn't write about heroes or saints. He wrote about us, the broken, the doubtful, the ones who can't quite forgive themselves. In Crime and Punishment, Raskolnikov isn't just a murderer. He's an idea wearing human skin. A man who kills not out of hatred, but out of philosophy, to prove that he is free. But freedom, Dostoevsky shows us, isn't liberation. It's a cage built of one's own guilt. The silence of God. That's what Raskolnikov hears after the act. He expected revelation, some divine thunder that would justify his crime. But the heavens remain still. And in that stillness, he discovers something worse than punishment. He discovers himself. Dostoevsky's genius lies in this cruel mirror. He forces us to see that the greatest torment isn't divine wrath. It's moral consciousness, that unbearable voice inside us that whispers, "You have seen the truth, and yet you turned away." In a world without God, guilt doesn't vanish. It mutates. It becomes internal, intimate, endless. Every soul in Dostoevsky's universe carries its own sentence. We are all Raskolnikov, walking through narrow streets under the weight of invisible crimes. We are all searching for redemption in places where redemption no longer seems possible. He once said that beauty will save the world, but the kind of beauty he spoke of wasn't pretty. It was sacred, painful, divine in its suffering. The beauty of a soul torn open, still choosing to believe. The beauty of tears shed not out of weakness, but awakening. Dostoevsky's life was itself a confession. A man sentenced to death, staring down the firing squad, only to be spared at the last moment. From that day, every breath he took carried the shadow of eternity. Every word he wrote became a prayer wrapped in despair. And through his novels, he asked one haunting question that still echoes today. Can man be good without God? It's easy to say yes in daylight, but Dostoevsky forces us to answer in darkness, when no one is watching. When the silence grows so deep that you can hear the heartbeat of your own conscience. Would you still be good then? Would you still believe in right and wrong when the universe seems indifferent? This is not just philosophy, it's confession. Because at some point in life, every one of us faces that silence. When prayers feel like whispers into an empty room. When guilt outlasts reason, when forgiveness feels like a language we've forgotten how to speak. And yet, there's hope in his darkness. Raskolnikov, broken and humiliated, finally finds peace not in escape, but in surrender. He kneels not before men, but before meaning itself. And in that moment, he rediscovers what Dostoevsky had always believed, that even in the deepest silence, God is still listening, that guilt, unbearable as it is, can become a doorway, that through suffering we awaken to love. Dostoevsky's faith wasn't naive. He knew too well the taste of doubt, the temptation of nihilism, the cold comfort of logic. He didn't preach, he wrestled. His novels are not sermons, but battlefields between good and evil, faith and despair. And at the center stands man, trembling, fragile, desperate to find meaning in a world that gives none. Maybe that's why his words still haunt us. Because deep down we feel what he felt, that life without something higher than ourselves becomes unbearable, that morality without transcendence becomes hollow, and that we need forgiveness not from the world but from ourselves. He shows us that the silence of God is not abandonment, but invitation. An invitation to listen deeper, beyond reason, beyond pride, to discover that what we call faith is not belief in miracles, but the courage to love even when the heavens are quiet, to forgive even when justice feels blind, to hope even when meaning seems lost. Perhaps the greatest punishment is not divine judgment, but self-awareness. And the greatest redemption is not being freed from guilt, but learning to live through it, transformed. Because only the soul that has fallen deeply can rise truly. Only the one who has sinned can understand grace. And only in the darkest silence one can hear the faint echo of the divine. So maybe the silence of God is not the end of faith, but the beginning. Maybe it's in that unbearable quiet where the soul learns to speak, where it learns that love is the only language that survives the void, and that forgiveness of others, of oneself, is the only prayer that never dies. When Dostoevsky wrote Crime and Punishment, he wasn't writing about a murderer. He was writing about us, humanity at its most fragile and divine. He gave us Raskolnikov not as a villain, but as a mirror. And if you dare to look long enough, you'll see it. Behind the guilt, behind the silence, behind the madness, a faint, trembling light, the light of redemption. And perhaps that's what Dostoevsky meant all along. That God may be silent, but he has never been absent. That the soul's suffering is not proof of abandonment, but proof of longing. That in every question, in every cry, in every tear, there's still faith, quietly waiting to be heard. Because the silence of God is not his absence, it's his most painful, beautiful form of presence.